Boom. All right. I am ready to declare us live. I'm not used to doing it. I'm a little off base. It's light outside, new time this week for the Awesemo.com PGA DFS show live before lock. It's a little earlier in the day. You know what? It's the NBA Finals. We had to juggle things around, but we're here. We're ready. Sanderson Farms, Jason Rouslin with me as he always is. It's not bad. It's better than Corrales, right?
Yeah, no, there's a lot of stuff going for us. And listen, it's 2020, so if we got to go 2.5 hours early, I feel like that's the easiest thing to happen in 2020. But also playing for $1 million on first place on DraftKings for the NBA Finals tonight. I even made an NBA lineup. There's not often. Yeah, even if you split it with 3,000 other people, it's still a millionaire maker winner. I know that we can boast about that, right? So, but yeah, it is a lot better this week. We get featured groups, so we get 12 hours of coverage of golf or 11 hours of coverage every day. We only get 3 hours from the Golf Channel, though, so it's kind of weird. We get the PGA Tour live, but we only get 4 to 7 every day on the Golf Channel. So really, if you don't have PGA Tour live, honestly, this would be a really good week to subscribe. And we get Shot Tracker back. So a couple of things. And on top of that, Ben, I feel like we're already up for the week because Louis Oosthuizen withdrew on Tuesday. How do you feel about that?
It's so I don't know. I was excited to play Bud Cauley though, and that was the other withdrawal that we saw. Brian Gay also out, so I guess it balances out. But yeah, Usti was someone I was pretty stunned to see his name in the field. Didn't really make a lot of sense. He's not about this. He said no go. And we get Scotty Scheffler back from COVID, which is a great thing. Hopefully he's all good, no effects, and he takes over as the top price golfer right off the bat.
Yeah, he sure does. And it's a good segue into our waves, weather, and withdrawal. We already talked about the withdrawals. I actually don't think they're COVID related, Ben, unless you can tell me differently.
I don't think so.
Yeah, at least they didn't report it as such. And they have been pretty good about reporting it. So then we got a couple of maybe a little bit of weather discussion. It looks like around 12 o'clock tomorrow, we're going to get maybe some gusts up to 20 miles an hour. And then Friday morning, maybe some 15 to 17 mile an hour stuff. But normally when we see under 25 miles per hour and it's not for a whole slate or a whole wave, I really don't think much into it. You didn't mention it to me before the show, so I assume you're not looking into it either.
No, not really, which is good because, with this event, this is usually I was asking you before the show, I don't really remember this, and it's because it's usually opposite of WGC. Yep. So I had enough to do just getting familiar with Jackson Country Club, which we're obviously going to talk about. The good thing, I think it's pretty straight up, though. I don't see any major issues.
Yeah, I don't see any major issues either. Let's talk about the waves a little bit. Got Sam Burns, really popular play. He's going off 7:16 local time. That's the lock is 8:05 our time, Eastern Standard Time, 7:05 for the middle of the country people where they're playing golf this week in Mississippi. So let's talk a little bit about that. The featured groups in the morning, Scotty Scheffler, Sung J M, and Keegan Bradley got in that. I don't know how Keegan Bradley got in that group. Keegan Bradley, Will Zalatoris. I'll take Zalatoris to watch right now. I think he brings a little more intrigue, but we're not there. PGA Tour is not quite ready to give up on those old tour veterans. But Ben, anybody else kind of strike you for maybe some first-round leader bets or going off in the morning?
So Johnny Vegas is a guy that I do think he goes off immediately first. He can get crazy hot. We've seen that time and time again from him. He's not playing overly well. Wasn't good last week. I did keep an eye on him. He's playing with Grace and Chris Stroud. Yep. And then you look, there's a couple, Tom Lewis is out early, another just wild man. Again, not really guys I'm drawn to in the DFS side, but we'll see. And then obviously Grillo, Laird, and Redmond, one of those early groups. I'll have my eye on that for obvious reasons.
Yeah, Grillo, Redmond, kind of shaping up to be similar type players. Maybe I kind of asked you before we went on the show, I said, is Doc Redmond like the new Emiliano Grillo who sometimes putts, and when he putts, he comes in the top 5 like a couple of weeks ago. So interesting one there. We'll definitely get into it. But before we get into those guys, let's go on and move on and talk about Sung J M and Scotty Scheffler here. I was talking earlier to somebody and kind of discussing the fact that, sure, Scotty Scheffler, awesome talent, love him long term. Long term, though, if I said, Ben, you got to take Scotty Scheffler or Sung J M, who are you taking? Just long term, not this week, and then I'll kind of bring up my point as to why I'm asking that way.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it actually does bleed in a little into this week. I would take Sun J.M., and I would take him this week as well. But it's a situation First of all, we have a situation. I don't know if I haven't had too many questions on this. I obviously, like most, have no idea if he's affected by COVID. Yeah. I don't think anybody knows. Who knows? But
we can tell you that Dylan Fratelli, who got it, none of the guys that have got it have seen that affected. Let's put it
no, everyone has seemed fine. But then, of course, you do hear stories of some people, they recover and they still have some effects. So we just don't know that. But even regardless of that, Scottie Scheffler was playing out of his mind, but I do think that resulted in him being the top price player. And when you zoom out a little bit, Sungjae Im is a guy, to me, that is still a class above him overall. And maybe that will change. Scheffler's got all the talent in the world, but I would take Sungjae Im long-term and short-term.
Me too. So my thing was, if they were both 10,500, I probably would have equal shares. The fact that Scheffler's 11.4, $900 more expensive than him, and comes with maybe 5 or 6% more ownership, I think is an easy play for me to go right to Sungjae Im this week. Pairing them both up in the same lineup, I don't mind it because, you got a Satiq Theegala and Kyle Stanley down there that we'll talk about that maybe I want to put in those lineups, or a couple of other, players to be named later, or whoever they are this week, a few of them. But typically in this week, I like to just go with one, and it would be Sungjae. It sounds like it would be Sungjae for you as well. Are you looking to hedge that matchup at all, since Scheffler is going to come in high owned? Like, he's 11-1 in the betting market, so you almost got to plunk down like 10% of the bankroll to cover it, basically.
Yeah, I don't love the price on him. I may look to see some things. I'm not saying that Scheffler is going to play bad, but at the same time, you just mentioned, because Louis withdrew, it really changes the slate in the sense that he's on an island. He's $900 north of every other player on the slate. I think that's a little much. And there are still just so many other capable golfers. I know it's not a strong field, but to me, Scheffler is clearly no one's an overwhelming favorite in any tournament, but he doesn't stand out as a guy that's super dangerous to blow a field away.
Honestly, I'd love to see him come out and shoot 70, 71 on Thursday here tomorrow, because then I think you get him into the 25-1 range, and that's where I would look to hedge it. I think that'd be a great place to do it. So, all right, let's talk about Will Zalatoris, because we talked about who we'd rather have, Scottie Scheffler or Sungjae Im. Should we be putting Will Zalatoris in that conversation, or are we not quite there? And that would mean that pretty much all of our shares from Zalatoris would just go right to Im, right?
Yeah. Long term, I mean, listen, Will Zalatoris could be amazing. I don't think anyone really knows. We've seen some flashes of incredible golf, especially lately at the major, but it's a short sample size. I had negative interest last week. I don't have a ton of interest this week. I do have exposure, though. I prefer Sungjae Im. I prefer Benny On. And it's just a product of knowing those guys' games better. And you're not getting... We'll talk about Davis Riley, but at least Davis Riley, you're looking for him to make a cut. Will Zalatoris, that ship has sailed. He's north of $10,000. You're not looking for made cuts. You're looking for competing for wins right off the bat.
Yeah, and granted, I did the math out, and he does need a top 6 or better. T6 or better likely gives him full status. So he does have that going for him. But if we're following along how some of the other golfers feel about Davis Riley and Will Zalatoris, I can tell you that they both feel that the upside is similar in both of them, and here they are, separated by $4,000 roughly in salary. So I don't know that that's going to really lead me to Davis Riley playing him this week, but I just thought I'd bring that up. Okay, so it sounds like you have exposure similar to me, maybe around 15%. He looks like he's projected 20. I don't think I'm going to get over him though this week, just for people if they have a question on that. It doesn't sound like you are either, right? So maybe right around the field.
Yeah, nothing. I don't think I'll get leverage on that. It's just a product of where he is. It's not an indictment on his game. I think he's shown that he might be a great player, but I don't think that's really pertinent this week, to be honest. He's not that good. And could I get burned? Sure, but there's a lot of players that I want to allocate that salary to up top, and I'm just not really willing to get over the field in a situation like this.
Speaking of getting burned, so funny that John Musto asked the question. I'm going to talk about next. We're going to talk about Sam Burns. Speaking of getting burned, Burns' projected ownership has been creeping up. We had him first projected around 12. I think he's now up around 15, 16, or 17. $9,800. We'll move on to course history because he does have some of it, but he doesn't have as good a course history as the two guys priced right above him, Byung-Hun An and Sebastian Munoz. Munoz, obviously the defending champion, and Han came in third here last year. So, of the two course history guys, Han and Munoz, are you pairing them up with Sungjae, going 1-2 there, or are you skipping and going to either Sam Burns or a guy that also has some pretty good history, at least on Donald Ross's, Doc Redman? And I know this is it's an original Donald Ross. They've done a lot to it since then, but still, Doc Redman didn't play this week.
Yeah, those two are causing me a little trouble. Sam Burns is a guy, he's an LSU guy, really big Bermuda splits, par 72. I'm glad to see he got out of the Dominican Republic. I thought I don't know what happened on that one hole. He was on the fairway for about 3 hours making numbers that you should never make on this Corrales, but that's neither here nor there. I do find myself preferring to double up with the South Koreans in on and in, like their games. Not a problem salary-wise, but I do look to Sam Burns and Redmond in certain spots. I just worry about the putter with these type of guys. You mentioned, is Redmond on the Emmanuel on the Griot train? That's not a good train to be on because you have to score at these events. And if you can't make the putts, it doesn't really matter how crisp your ball striking is. So
true. Very true. A couple of other good course history guys in here that we'll talk about a little later in the show. DJ Trahan has 2 top 10s and 3 missed cuts. Patton Kazire has 2 top 10s and 2 missed cuts. So we'll talk about them a little bit later. But since the topic we were talking about was course history, I thought I'd dive into that. All right, let's talk a little bit more about this mid section, though. Before we move on, Doc Redman or Burns, if you had to pick one this week. Before we move on,
it's funny, when I looked at the pricing, if you would have asked me that, I would have said Redman. I'm starting to gravitate back to Burns, and I know, yesterday I talked with Tim a lot, and he pointed out, for as good as Burns has done, he really hasn't knocked on the door as often as you would think. He has one career top 5. It was at Sanderson Farms, but he's really not that type of guy. He's pretty consistent, though. He's made 7 out of 8 cuts. Ball striking will be there. I'm going to go with Sam Burns if I had to choose there.
Okay. Again, if I had to choose, I would go Redmond. I think it's really close. I didn't have the decision because I didn't have the $100 for Burn. Honestly, as weird as it sounds, I just didn't have $100. I'd rather play Thagala over Putnam. So that was the decision I made. I went to, we'll talk about them a little bit later. All right, let's talk about a couple more guys. I just was asked about Dylan Fratelli and Brian Harman. If you're not playing Sungjae Im or Will Zalatoris up top, or Scotty for that matter, are you going to start with Fratelli or Harman, or are they a little bit too pricey for you where you'd rather just skip maybe down even to Stenson and Griot?
Yeah, this is the toughest range for me is the low 9s, and it's particularly with Harman and Fratelli because I see merit to playing them. Harman, gain strokes putting in 4 straight. Ball striking not good, but the results have been there because of the crafty short game. I talk pretty much every week when Fratelli's in the tournament. He's always dangerous because of the way he plays. He's very erratic. The stats can line up. But you mentioned it. There is a range right below them with List, Stenson, and Griot. It is screaming for balanced builds to attack, and it kind of creates a dead zone in the lower 9. So if you're looking for leverage, I actually think them and Corey Connors is probably where you could go.
Agreed. And speaking of leverage, Carl just asked in our chat a good point. Are you trying to get leverage on Burns and Redmond, or do you think the ownership is a little bit too high for that?
No, I'm not looking to massively fade them either. And we'll get there. I think I have a couple other spots where I want to make my stand. And the last thing you want to do in DFS golf is have a really aggressive stand, get it right, and then you accidentally made another aggressive stand that you didn't want to, and you get, for no pun intended, you get burned. So I'm not looking to make a big splash with those guys. I'm going to have exposure probably around the field.
I think it's a good take. I think it deserves some likes. So if you guys are in here, we appreciate it. Down to our thing, and give Ben a few likes for that. I think that was a great
new
point.
Time. Got to pump up the likes for the 6 p.m. crowd. They know. So
with that being said, Stenson, Griot, List, all around 10%. Is that a good place to start to get leverage?
Oh, it's a great place to start. I think you can literally start your lineup with all 3 of them, or easy second man in, third man in. They fit. The great thing about those guys is they fit every type of build. Now they're going to be popular. Stenson showed some life at Corrales. Griot does what he does. He fell back after kind of getting in the mix for a little while there. List was good again. I think he's right on the doorstep. Great range. I'm actually trying to get over on all three.
I think so too. At 10%, I think that I'm targeting at least 2x in my MME builds this week. I think they're a great pair. I was able to build a bunch of lineups with Sungjae, Redmond, or Burns, and one of these guys in almost every lineup. I think it was a good way to start. You only have to dip down into that low 7s for the last 3 guys, which, of course, we'll get to coming up. So in the 8 range, we still got a couple of guys like Xing Jun Zhang, who just loves these weak field events, man. He won't make a cut at good events, like, any good ones, Waste Management or something like that. He won't make those. But he's going to make cuts, and he's going to make birdies at these ones. 8K seems expensive. Are you playing him this week?
Yeah, this is a guy that can't really ignore him. Coming in 2 straight top 15s, 11th last week, 14th at Safeway. Ball striking is there. The thing I like about him, and we use these examples often on this show, you can frame this two separate ways. Over his last 8 tournaments, he's missed 4 cuts and he's made 4 cuts. That doesn't sound good at all. Over his last 8 tournaments, he's got 4 top 15s. That sounds really good.
Sounds like a DP play, yep.
Yeah, exactly. Big time tournament play, big time risk.
Couple of guys. Let's first talk about the chalk in this range, and then we'll go to the maybe some pivot plays. Cam Davis seems to be setting up to be this week's William Gordon, where he's projected 20% and he ends up at 50%. And the reason why people are playing him are for the right reasons. But to me, I think I'm fading him because, like I said, I think he's setting up to be a 40% owned in single entry type stuff.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that's the kind of guy at that type of ownership, I'm not going to be able to get a ton of leverage. What I did do with Cam Davis, because I'm very in line with what you just said, I'm playing him in cash. I think he's in line to make another cut. But when you're talking about rolling the dice in tournaments, you can leverage against that. And it's not that he needs to get cut. He just doesn't need to get in the mix. So I think there's an opportunity for me to get paid off on Cam Davis in cash. And if he has a top 20, a top 30, and that's fine in tournaments to not really be overweight.
Yeah, and his ownership is projected, I think, around 20% right now. And this was more for the higher dollar stuff where we saw Will Gordon, who was touted everywhere, projected 20% and ended up like 45% last week.
Yeah, that didn't work.
Insane, Ben. Maybe it's because you liked him and everyone was like, oh, well, if Ben's finally jumping on, then we got to jump on with him.
Yeah, that worked out real good. This is what happens. I resist playing these guys. That guy was a wizard at Travelers. Then I hop on, all hell breaks loose. But I'll say this. I get what you're saying with the ownership, but I don't see Cam Davis similar to Will Gordon is still an unknown. Cam Davis is a guy who's playing very consistent golf out there.
Yeah,
I still think it's at that ownership you want to strongly consider pivoting in spots, but Cam Davis is definitely playing better golf right now.
He is. Speaking of Gordon, though, coming in at 6% projected own now after the 50% bomb last week, I actually think he's in play.
I have Gordon for sure.
Yeah, I'm going right back to him. I mean, listen, I know he didn't perform well last week, but that's what we're going to get with these 21-year-olds. When they make the cut, they're going to make birdies, they're going to make eagles. If you look at Gordon's log, no top 25s, but when he makes the cut, he's putting up 75, 80 DraftKings points, and that has the definite capability of helping you win a GPP. So, all right, let's go into buy low. It's a really good buy low spot for Will Gordon. That's exactly what I'm looking at here. All right, let's go on to make the cut. This is a really fun segment. We talk about pretty much anybody that you guys want to. Egregious, not egregious. So let's start off the egregiousness with Rafa gains 25 million strokes putting at the U.S. Open Cabrera Bello. Sure. Out of nowhere, here he is this week. Does he see the weekend, and is he in your player pool this week?
Can't do it. He's gained strokes putting in 3 straight events, and it's resulted in 37th miscut and 23rd. That's only because he gained strokes putting. Tee to green, he's been negative in 5 straight events. Giant red flags with RCB. I'm totally fading.
How about Denny McCarthy and Charlie Hoffman? These 2 guys, 7,900. I think maybe a lot of people are going to use at least one of them with Cam Davis in cash. I think Hoffman gets to the weekend, but I think Denny McCarthy's run might be over. That Sunday round where he shot one over there in Corrales, he's been on a good stretch of golf. I've got him packing his bags, but I got Hoffman getting through.
We're in line tonight. Charlie Hoffman, also cash viable for me. Think he sails through playing quality golf. Not really on Denny McCarthy. We know he can putt, but I'm not really too concerned about coming in underweight.
What's Chesson Hadley doing at $7,800?
It's building birdhouses. I don't know. I don't know what that guy does. He can't scramble. I see him on the commercial. Every time I see Chesson Hadley, he's making another birdhouse.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
now.
you know the commercial every time.
Yeah.
It's Chesson Hadley building birdhouses. 9 around the green. Bad scrambler. Good tee to green. He's got some splits that I like. He's a Bermuda guy. I just don't love that price. So for me, he's firmly behind Hoffman, but it is a dead range. So I get if you want to take a flyer.
Charles Schwartzel's also the same price, coming off a good start at the Safeway. I can't get this guy right, so I'm not going to play him, which maybe means everybody else should.
Who?
Wait, who did I say? Sorry. Charles Schwartzel. Sorry.
Oh, God.
That's what I'm
No wonder I didn't.
That's why I get confused.
Yeah, I have my brain programmed to just block out his name at this point. Yeah, listen, Charles, what I do like is he's starting to show that inconsistency in the sense of he gained 5.1 with the irons in Safeway out of nowhere. He gained 4 strokes putting at the 3M. He gained 3.8 strokes off the tee at the 3M. So, like, there are parts to his game that are trending up. And over that course, he actually also gained around the green every single event since 3M. That makes him interesting, but at the same time, this is still a guy that is wildly inconsistent. So I put him in the Chesson Hadley bucket. Great flyer, but you really don't want to hone in on these guys in like single entry. I think that's too much leverage.
Yeah, why they're at $7,800, I'm not really sure. They seem like they should be $7,200. All right, let's move down. Tom Lewis, we already mentioned. I think he is an absolute GPP target. He's a boomer bust. I think he should be in the player pool each and every week in these type of events. So I'm playing him. I think he makes the weekend. His irons haven't been good enough. I'm still going to play him because when they're on, they're on. But I think he might struggle to find the weekend because his irons haven't been that great.
Yeah, listen, Tom Lewis is a guy, we talk about this dating back to how he got here. He won a Corn Ferry event literally out of nowhere, and that's just what he does. Having said that, I don't like the form. You mentioned the irons. I'm going to pass on him this week.
I got a good question from Brandon. Patrick Rogers or Cam Davis in the GPP? I know we just talked about those guys. I think that Davis's ownership is going to trend higher. If it looks like Rogers is going to be lower owned, I think I'd take Rogers here. It's a tough one. If you don't, how about this? If you don't need the ownership discount, like if the rest of your build is only 50% total ownership and Davis brings you to 70, I think I would take Davis over Rogers. If it's an ownership thing, I'd go Rogers.
Well said. If they were the same ownership, I would clearly take Cam Davis. If I wasn't making a stand, I would take Cam Davis. But if you need to leverage, you got to roll the dice with Patrick Rogers.
Lucas Glover, when I was building out some crunches before the show, just to see what cruncher liked and how I build my crunches, I take Awesemo's ratings, which of course you can get for our premium package, just $8.95 for the week. And then I put them together with my projected points, which of course you can also get with the Awesemo Plus package. And Lucas Glover kept coming up at like 25% owned in each of my builds, which is interesting. Are you interested in Glover this week?
Not really. He exploded at the U.S. Open with the putter. He gained 7 strokes putting. That negated not bad ball striking. He was fine tee to green. That's what did it. That cracked him into the top 20. He's a guy that could play. I just honestly have more interest in aggressive players in that range. And we've talked about Charlie Hoffman, Xingzun Zhang, even to a lesser extent, Charles. So I don't think I'm going to have room for him this week.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Again, like I said, he's coming up in the builds. So I'll probably end up with 10 or 15% of them because of that. What I do, how I build is I just go out and see what they're giving me. Then I put in what I like, and then I leave everybody else at a baseline of 10%. He's likely going to be one of those guys that get it because the models like him this week. So I just wanted to bring up Lucas Glover there. All right, moving down the list a little bit. JT Poston, I think, is a really interesting talking point. Looked pretty good in round 1 of the U.S. Open. I think he shot even par +1. It was a top 20 score. He was basically min price. I loved it. I loved everything I heard. And then all of a sudden, I watched him start, and he bogeyed the first 6 or 7 holes and had a double in there as well. And then all of a sudden, after the round, we learned that he got his cornea scratched and that he could basically only see out of one eye. And that's why he shot 85 on day 2. Obviously hasn't played for 2 weeks. Do we think that's solved? Nobody tended to ask him this week. He wasn't on any interviews, so a little nervous going back to Boston. I think he's a fine play here. What are you doing with all that information? Nothing?
Anything? Yeah, no, I'm not playing him. I didn't even know that, but he's just been off. This is a guy that normally relies off the tee. He's got bad irons, but the irons have gotten worse, and the off the tee game is now broken. He's lost tee to green in 7 straight events. That's just too much for me. He's going to turn around at some point, but I don't think it's going to be here.
Same price. Stuart Sink, career, maybe not career-defining win because it wasn't that great of an event, but guy came out of nowhere, had his son on the bag. Does that run continue? I mean, does he make the weekend even here?
I mean, listen, there's nothing to knock a guy. He won the event. He was fantastic in all 4 categories. Came out of nowhere, though, so I'd be lying if I said I have a good feel on a guy like Stuart Sink. Maybe he can continue playing good golf. I certainly think that he crashes back to earth in a hurry. I'm not really interested, to be honest. I'd rather take a complete flyer with Russell Knox.
Me too. That was actually going to be one of the next guys I talked about. Top 10 at the Safeway, which I think could be a decent comp course for what we're playing here. Not identical, but harder to hit fairways, premium on ball striking. I think Knox is in play this week, so good to hear that we're both on. Next 3 guys all have something in common. They were all priced really high last week and have all gotten a huge discount to this week. I'm going to say them in succession. We got Brian Stewart. He goes from 85 to 75. Matej Schwab goes from 88 to 74. And Christoph Ventura goes from 9-1 to 7-2. I don't really think that they played that bad last week. All 3 of them made the cut. Schwab had a good Sunday. Stewart came in the top 35. And Christoph Ventura, not a great week. But are any of these 3 guys in play for you this week? With the salary discount, I think I'm playing all of them.
Yeah, I think you can make a pretty good case for all 3. Stewart is a guy that I rarely get to as much as I kind of want to. It's just the concept of he doesn't show up in some of the metrics that I run. He's a good Bermuda guy. He's playing better. I am more likely to go to Matthias Schwab. As we all know, he's an incredible ball striker. He cannot putt. And then Christoph Ventura, I was actually really surprised at his price. He got the biggest drop, as you mentioned. It wasn't that bad. His off the tee game is very strong. He needs to shore up the irons. There's no doubt about that. But he is prototypical what you mentioned already. If he makes the weekend, he can take a 52nd and turn it into a 30th in raw points. He scores a lot. He's a big-time par 5 guy, and that can make up for not so good, actual placement points.
Yeah, and a great tidbit in our chat here. Sean just let us know that he actually had a deep scratch on his cornea at a time, and it took like 10 days to fully heal. Which means we're putting it like right about now-ish. So
miserable.
I know it really does. It sounds awful. I gotta be honest with you.
That's why I don't go outside. It's a dangerous world out there. People getting blinded.
Just stay inside.
Yeah,
Be a hermit.
Absolutely not.
Especially now. So, all right, let's talk about a couple more guys in this range that I don't mind. Cam Tringale, he's been getting a lot of love. I've heard him a bunch of times ask me this week. And Taylor Gooch, a couple of guys I'm getting talk. First off, I'm going to Schwab. I don't think I mentioned. I'm going to Schwab, going to Ventura, and going to Stewart. I'm going to play all of them. How about these next 2 guys? Tringale, one of the biggest movers in terms of projected ownership, in Taylor Gooch. You playing either this week? Oh, I forgot.
I think for me, Taylor Gooch is a guy that he has an incredible skill set with one particular thing. We've seen time and time again, his irons can pop. At Safeway, they showed a little flash, wasn't enough to get him through the cut, and the form isn't great. But he's someone that I think is perpetually on weak fields. You got to consider him for your player pool because he has a skill set with one area that is elite. Cameron Tringale, fringe cash play that I'm not playing. That's how I kind of sum him up a lot of weeks. I think it's all right, but I just don't know if he can survive off the tee. Not that that's going to punish you here, to be honest. I just really didn't stand out for me. Is he someone that I'm overlooking maybe?
Well, he's only had 3 starts because I think he had that random withdrawal or disqualification. It was and it's happened to him a couple of times, actually. I think those random.
I think he signed a scorecard wrong again. Like,
how does that happen in today's day and age? It's almost like he just wants to do it to get out of there and doesn't want to see a missed cut on his card or something. I don't know. But the other 2 starts were good. They both gained over, I think, 4 strokes total for the week. So I think he has to be in play a little bit for me this week. He's not in my main lineup, but he is, he is at least in my player pool. I'm not going to lie. Okay, let's talk about a couple more guys. Bo Hostler, Chris Kirk.
God.
Well, Hostler made the cut. Chris Kirk was the first round leader until they put in the real score.
Yeah,
what do you think of these two
game
guys?
Imaginary really got Chris Kirk last week.
Oh, man. Yeah, you playing either this week?
Oh boy, Bo Hostler is someone that I still believe can be really good, but his irons are just so bad that it's tough. This is where it's tough for everyone. Corrales, just so everybody knows, we can't see the strokes gain data, and that does make it difficult. You look at some guys' finishes and you try to draw conclusions. I really don't know what some of them did. And Bo Hostler is someone I would love to know. Was it ball striking? Did he get crazy hot with his putter as he's known to do? I don't think I'm really there with either of them, but at the same time, in a field like this, if that's the flyer you want to take, of course, at 1%, you can do pretty much anything you want with these deep flyers.
For sure. Will Gordon, we already talked about very briefly, but
yeah,
I think it really is a really good buy low spot. We just saw him put up about 80 points at the Safeway, which again, I think it's a similar type of course where you got to hit, the fairways are harder to hit. So I'm back in on Gordon this week. I think you are as well.
I am. And one of the important things that one of my favorite tools behind our paywall is our Top Golfers tool, and it helps present leverage and things of that nature. And just one of the things that I like to do, it's not blind, but when a guy is massive chalk and he lets people down, the next week you always get him under-owned. And with golf, it can flip so fast, especially with a young guy like this. I'm not overly worried that like Will Gordon isn't who we thought he was. He's just a guy that's going to do that. So this is a week I think you can identify some leverage, not to say go crazy, but man, what a difference of 2 weeks. You're not hearing his name anywhere.
No, and we just had a question about Bo Hostler's stats from last week. And first off, I don't think we need to talk about the fairway hit percentage because it was so easy to hit those fairways last week, ridiculously easy. But I think what we can talk about is his greens and regulation. I'm pulling that up for everybody now. Let's see. Give me a second here.
The only thing I know about last week is Lahiri was first in putts per GIR. So yes. I think we know how he got there.
Yep. Looks like... What season are we in? We're in 2021, right?
Yeah, good luck navigating that site. It's a little wrapped in an enigma. It's impossible.
Yeah, tell me about it. This looks terrible right now. So he hit, I think it was 67% of his greens last week. So, let's put it this way. He, in the 2 events that he's played, which is 8 rounds, his total average is 71, and he went from a tie 23rd to tie 65. So I think it was like 66%. Below average of the field for Hostler last week in terms of hitting his greens. That's what I saw last week. So I'm not terribly in. I'd rather go to Kyle Stanley, who hit over 70% of his greens at 6,800. What do you make of Kyle Stanley this week? Are you in?
Yeah, core play for me. Super important play. Needs to get there. Guy that, listen, it wasn't that long ago where Kyle Stanley would be 10,000 in this field. I know that you could say that about a lot of players who have shown form and then it disappeared. And it's been a rough stretch for a while for Kyle Stanley. I'm acknowledging that. Starting to get it together, though. He's made 3 or 4 cuts, 28th last week. You take 28th when you're sub 7K. I know that sounds crazy for a guy like this, but make a cut and move on with a guy like Kyle Stanley.
Guy that at least showed that he was hot with his irons the safe way. Didn't hit that many greens last week, though, in my checking. Again, this greens and regulation is not necessarily strokes gained on the approach, but a good correlation. Patton Kizzire, guy that can light it up with the putter. 2 top 10s here. Did you get to him this week? Because I did. That's probably going to cost me, but I did.
No, it probably won't because I'm not going to get to him. And Patton Kizzire every year just ends up in Eastlake, and it's like, why is Patton Kizzire here? Oh yeah, he won like 8 swing season events. He has to survive off the tee. Listen, his off the tee game is borderline not competitive. He's lost it's so many I can't even count. It's like 10 of 11. It's very bad. Great putter. You know what you're getting with him at least. Not for me though.
Keegan Bradley and Bran Snedeker are 2
oh, dear God.
householdish names in this field, and they're both real cheap. I gotta think that they're gonna be relatively high owned because of these names down here. Are you playing either?
I have some Keegan. Again, just a guy who we know the putter is just a wild card with him, but tee to green, fantastic compared to this field. I prefer Ventura, if we're being honest, and even Will Gordon. So I have a little of Keegan. Nothing else to really say though on it.
I guess my question to you, turn it right back on Keegan, is like Sergio Garcia's in the field, Emiliano Grillo's in the field, Keegan Bradley's in the field, Douglas is in the field. They're all the worst putters in the world. Yeah. Sergio Garcia is legitimately the worst putter in professional golf. Like every professional golf tour there is, Sergio Garcia is the worst putter right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's not good.
Would you, in any situation, play Sergio Garcia over Keegan Bradley right now? I mean, I know that's a weird question because they're separated by $1,500, but Garcia's real bad right now. I mean, real bad.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you're getting at. Now, Sergio is also one of the best drivers of the golf ball in the world. He's gained off the tee in every event in 2020. That's serious business. Now, it doesn't matter if you can't putt, and he cannot putt right now. So I get it, but the difference in what you're talking about is when you're playing Keegan Bradley, you can live with cold putting because he just needs to make the cut. Sergio at 85 or 8,600, he's got to do more than that. And to do that, you have to make some putts. So can he do it? Sure, but he's shown no signs with that putter at all this year.
So we're in the 6,700 range now, which some local connection here, plus a little bit of talk on the web.com. Is this Davis Riley kid, 6,700? So let me make it a little easier for you. Davis Riley or Satiq Theegala this week?
The guy who went to Pepperdine, I know him as that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go with him. 14th at Safeway, gained 8. Jesus. Now I'm looking at it. He gained 8 strokes putting.
Yeah, he was matching the field everywhere else though. So
what are these guys doing?
That's what they do.
You know what the real answer is? JJ Spawn. I take JJ Spawn over both of them. Okay. Davis Riley is interesting. I know a little about him. I know a lot of people who have backed this guy on the Corn Ferry Tour. He's won a bunch down there. He's got a little experience. He
kind of feels like a Lanto Griffin type player to me. I don't know why I'm saying that, but like he came out of the Corn Ferry playing pretty good, a little older that no one had heard about, and now he's just a good tour player.
You know what? I'm pivoting this is a real good segment. We should clip Jordan Klein. You should clip this for social. This is good. He asked me a question. I go with Theegala. I'm switching my answer to the other guy. So now I got all the bases covered. I'm going with Davis Riley. He played this event last year, gained 5 with the irons, and you know what? I do think that this is a Sugo. It's a step up, of course, but he can handle this field, and I'm not seeing much from Theegala upon digging in here.
Okay. Yeah, it's a tough one. If you have the $100, I guess it's not a bad spot to go. But I do like Theegala. I think it's Theegala. We're gonna get Carl, our phonetic speller. We're gonna need to get you on this. I think I'm right on the Pepperdine guy. He's a great putter. We know he's a great putter. He's pretty long off the tee as well. So I think I like that here. His irons haven't been great, but he's finding some strides. The T14 at Safeway definitely intrigues me much. So JJ Spawn, you said a couple of other guys in this ring. Keith Mitchell, maybe finding a little bit of form. Decent week last week at down in Corrales. Didn't do great hitting the greens though. We know his irons are his problem lately. Keith Mitchell, 6,600. Any interest? I
mean, listen, he's a bomber. And there is some interest, but I didn't play him last week, and I don't think I'm going to play him this week again. I still think that his game is not where I don't want to say should be, but it's just not really getting there, and I'm not sure how often he burned you with mega upside. I'm with Chat, JJ Spawn over all these guys. I do like Spawn. He's showing some form, and I think he makes another cut this week.
Yeah, and he just really couldn't get it going. He was in the one decent lineup that I had last week. So, yeah, it is what it is there. Anirban Lahiri made you look pretty dang good last week with a great hot take call, a top 10. He got it right. Is he going to see another weekend? Does the play continue, or was he a one-hit wonder?
I hope it continues. I will say, though, I had to dig in to try to find out what happened, and it looks like he just got really hot with the putter, which is great. It's great to see that.
But he does, though, yeah.
But it's hard to keep that going, so proceed cautiously. That's all I think Lahiri will be more popular this week because, some people talked about him last week. He played well, and now it's not as good of a spot, in my opinion.
Yeah, 2 guys we didn't talk about back up top really quick. That since we've we're almost through the make the cut segment, not quite, but let's go back up to the top. Carlos Ortiz and Pat Perez priced right next to each other. Carlos Ortiz got some great course history coming in off 2 made cuts. Did you just go up to your boy Grio, who they're talking about giving you a hard time in chat, or did you find yourself to Pat Perez or Carlos Ortiz this week a little bit?
Certainly not Carlos Ortiz. I have a free betting article posted, ready to go. The head-to-head in it is against Carlos Ortiz, so I'm definitely not there.
Going again.
I think Pat Perez is fine, but for me, there are three guys we've talked. Liss, Stenson, and Grio make a lot of sense. If I was going to take a wild card, it would be so.
Oh, is it Dylan Fratelli that you got going up against, by the way? Is that you're betting on Fratelli against Ortiz? Is that what it is? There's some I shorted Ortiz in multiple ones, but I believe Fratelli is the play in the article. Yep. Okay. Yeah, I think that's
Carlos Ortiz, he's getting a major course history tax. Like, yes, he's played really well here. He's not playing well at all, though.
It reminds me of like Kelly Craft of last week, though. The guy, it just happens for McCarthy. Throws up a hole-in-one, another eagle.
Yeah, that's good. Just these guys, it's a real simple game. You just make a hole-in-one.
And an eagle.
If Carlos Ortiz makes a hole-in-one, I'm protesting next week. I'm getting
go ahead and straight shorten the event altogether, right? All right, now back down to the price range that we were in. So, Pat Perez, you think he makes the weekend? I mean, he's playing okay, right? Except for his 2 withdrawals. He either makes the weekend or withdraws. Let's put it that way. That's my summation on it.
Yeah. Pat Perez is fine. I just prefer other guys in the same range that we've already talked about.
Bombers at 7K. JB Holmes, another definite withdraw candidate. Don't know what's going on with him. I mean, it looked like he was playing well, and then all of a sudden withdrew. And Johnny Vegas chalked last week, now at 7K. So both Bombers, both good off the tee, are either make the field for you this week.
Not a ton of interest. If I had to choose, it would be Vegas. He's out early tomorrow, gets the 8 par 5s over those first 2 days. He can take advantage of them, similar to last week, which I thought he should have. And he was close to making that cut. It fell apart late.
Yeah.
You miss on the number. You miss a couple strokes. I'm not going to worry about it too much.
Yeah, it's not like he's like Aaron Wise missing every cut. And is this guy ever going to play good golf again?
I hope. I don't know. It's not good. There's no form to speak of. I said this yesterday. If you play Aaron Wise, you are just banking on old pedigree that this would have been a course for him when he was in form. But he has shown absolutely nothing, and that's quite disturbing, actually.
It is. I don't disagree. Guy that was maybe semi-popular last week was definitely popular in my lineups. Doug Gim got it to 4 under, hadn't made a bogey since his first hole. It was, 25 good holes, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, I'm just going to go bogey, double, bogey in and shoot even par and miss the cut by 2. What's like, why? Everything was going fine. I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, he was a guy that I was also on last week, thought it set up well. And again, it showed flashes, but just not able to really string it together like we needed. So
6,700, are you going back to him?
I don't mind it. Again, you're going to get – he started to show some steam, got cut. That's all going to fade away. You don't need a ton of them, so not going to be a core play. Will be in the player pool. Prefer Spawn, though. I know I keep saying that. Spawn over most of these guys.
How about this guy? This guy cannot put a weekend together, but he's made 7 straight of them, and he's, I think, 3 of 3 here as well. It's a good time for the season for Adam Schenk, but he really can't put together weekends. I mean, last week went into the weekend top 20. Does he make his 8th straight, and are you playing him, or are you just going right to Spawn?
Yeah, listen, he's doing what you want in the sense that he's not killing you, but where's the upside? Can it come? Sure, he shows flashes.
How about cash? To pair up with, say, your guys like Hoffman and Davis that you're playing in cash.
I went really balanced in cash, so I didn't need them. But if I did, I'd feel say you wanted to. I wouldn't advise doing this, but say you wanted to play Scheffler in cash.
Yeah,
I think that
or him.
Would make a lot of sense in that scenario.
I think if I had to pick one guy, if you really want to jam in Scheffler or him in cash, then you got to get a below 7K guy in. I think Schenk would be my pick. I think he's just found a way to make
it for me.
Would be Stanley, yeah.
It would be Schenk or Stanley.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think those are 2 pretty good picks. And I saw Kyle Stanley. I think he's like on DK. He's like 80 to 1 to win, priced with like the 7,800 guys. I know
he's just mispriced. He's a little light this week. So
you think ownership follows because of that, though?
I do. I think that Kyle Stanley will garner some. He's a name people recognize. He's starting to make some cuts. Not crazy ownership, but he's not going to be unpopular relative to a 6K range.
Ryan Armour, former winner here, but also a couple of missed cuts here. So definitely form dependent. Does Ryan Armour find a paycheck here again? And then we'll talk about Andrew Putnam.
I think he can make the weekend, probably cash a paycheck, but I don't have a lot of interest. In this range, I really was looking more for upside, erratic. If I went down there, didn't need to go down there too much. I also do want to mention, I do think Wesley Bryan is a fine play, so he took some of that ownership.
300 all the way down there.
Yeah.
At a course where 55% of the fairways are going to be hit anyway, it's
going to be fine.
In fact, we're almost, 46 minutes into the show, and I haven't brought up Jordan Spieth. This seems like it would be a good spot for him to play, to be honest with you. But
yeah, he should have try to fix it.
But he just got another sponsor exemption into the freaking Zozo, so he doesn't have to worry about that. Yeah, the Zozo.
Where is the Zozo?
All right, so I might get these mixed up. Zozo or CJ Cup. One is at Shadow Creek in Vegas after the Shriners, so in 2 weeks. And then the other one, whichever it is at Sherwood Country Club in California the week after. So
okay,
it's actually we'll get two good fields there, which is coming up. And then we got just 2 weeks after that is the Masters. So we've actually got a really good stretch of golf coming up. You're not a Plus member. Really good time to do so. I mean, I know it sounds weird, but these are the times where you're going to get fields where nobody knows them. Utilizing the research and the projected tools that we have are a great way to get an edge on the field. These have been some of my best times in DFS golf. It provides the bankroll for all those big events that, of course, we all love to fire at. These are ones where I think it's a little easier to win.
Yeah, and just real quick, just to add to that, we've talked about this on the show before. It's incredibly hard to juggle all these sports. And part of the success of the company and what I really believe in it, we make it easier to play multiple sports by giving you those edges and helping you out. Like I rely, I'm doing shows for college football and golf. And then I rely on Alex's tools, those projections, the ownership. It helps clear those cobwebs when you're juggling sports. So there's no better time to get involved with golf. And if you're busy with NFL, you can still play golf because you can lean on Jason's projections, lean on Alex's projections, the leverage tools, the articles, things of that nature. You get in and you get some swing season guy. Then when the season starts next year, a lot of these guys you're going to be more familiar with rather than saying, who is Davis Riley? Like, I don't know who that guy is. And if you play swing season, you probably will if he starts playing really well.
For sure. And I think it's right now, obviously, with MLB playoffs still going on in NBA, there's a lot. But I love when it's just golf and football because those are two sports that I love to play. They're week long. I don't have to do it daily. It's just it's a fun time of the season. So anyways, speaking of that, we're going to spend 2 minutes before we go on to our deep dives and hot takes. We're going to spend 2 or 3 minutes to talk about the Scottish Open. It is my favorite European Tour event. Now, granted, that's the reason I'm sitting here today. I became buddies with Alex on our trip over to Scotland where we spent a week over there. And man, it was the best live final out there. Let me tell you, if you have to go to a live final, Scotland with FanDuel was the place to do it. It was just a really fun week. However, so it's a little near and dear to my heart. I'm playing a little bit over there, 5K to first on DraftKings. Do you have any picks at all? Have you looked at it?
Scottish Open, no. I saw it was supposed to be
like
tornado level wins
on Sunday.
Yeah, I bet a couple guys for Scottish Open. I bet George Coetzee. There's some names. Fleetwood and Fitzy are over there. Not something I dug into too much.
I'll give you a couple names for DK.
Please, go ahead.
Andre Arnoux, who we know is a pretty good talent. He's 7,200. Sean Croker has been playing some really good golf. He's also 7,200.
You love that guy.
Yeah, I do.
You play that guy every time.
Every week I play.
Yeah, you're always
literally.
In the field half the time. You still recommend him. So
yeah. If Croker's not in the field, but it's a European Tour event,
you still go for him.
Still play him. The next one, the last one, Cullum Hill. He's a Scottish guy going over there. He's also 7,200. As is Ross Fisher. So if you like Fleetwood up top, pair him with a lot of those guys in that low 7K range. That's what I'll be doing for my couple of lineups. Okay, back to Sanderson Farms, which crazy. It's a lot weaker field than the Scottish Open.
It is, yeah.
That's how professional golf works, or at least DraftKings works. Couple more guys in our deep dive. Okay, so we've mentioned a lot already, but one guy that played pretty good last week, and this is definitely swing season type of guy. It's Robert Streb, no glove Streb. He's one of my deep dives this week. Not a hot take. But Streb, I got him making the cut. How about you for a guy deep diving that you believe will make the weekend down here?
So yeah, if you want
then Andrew Putnam. We'll talk about Andrew Putnam after. Got to talk about Putnam.
I think, like I said, Wesley Bryan, I'm not even going to classify because I just feel straight comfortable playing him.
Yeah, sure.
Austin Cook is somebody that I dug into, and he's starting to round into form. He hasn't knocked on the door by any stretch, but he's stringing together some made cuts, and the irons are coming around. This is a guy that's shown some pedigree in swing season. He won at RSM. I don't love the course, I'll be honest. I don't think it's the best fit for him, but if you're looking for a complete flyer at 6,200, you could do worse than Austin Cook.
I actually think, isn't he like 8 of 9 of his last cuts too?
Yeah,
like
he's making cuts. He's just not doing anything.
And he's scoring a decent amount of DFS points. So if he does make the weekend at 6,200, I think I will have him in some of my $5 teams, the Drive the Green contest. I think he's a good fit for it at 6,200. Okay, let's do this. Let's give our hot takes because, and the reason why I didn't bring up Putnam is because Putnam's going to be part of my hot take here. I'm going to go with my group of 3 guys, which last week I had Justin Sue. He totally screwed me. I was loving where I was. Loving it. Looking like Spieth out there making 30-footers, but it was great nonetheless for him. You nailed Lahiri. So Andrew Putnam withdrew from the U.S. Open, but prior to that at the Safeway, we saw the irons bounce back. We know he's terrible off the tee. He hasn't gained off the tee since last year's Charles Schwab, which is not the swing seat, not like when we came back from COVID Charles Schwab. I mean last year's Charles Schwab. It's been 16 months since the guy has gained off the tee. But if there's anywhere to get away with it, it would be here. I've got Andrew Putnam 11-1 top 20. I got him covering that for us this week as my hot take. And I've got Will Gordon on a bounce back week. He's 7-5-0 on the top 20. That's my 2 guys. Gordon. Actually, you know what? Gordon Gim, and Putnam, top 20s. Those are my hot takes this week.
Okay.
I forgot about Gim. I had to bring up Gim because
hey, there's nothing
he screwed me last week, so I got to go back to him. I wish Keegan was playing. I'd go into him too. I was gonna say something. You know what? I'm gonna go with. So again, go check out my betting article. Definitely worth it. But I will say this: Charlie Hoffman is a guy that I think can really get in the mix here. He's sitting 12-1 for a top 5. I don't mind that. I think that's a pretty good spot for a guy that has shown certainly the ability. He's competed in fields much stronger than the Sanderson Farms. He was 14th at Corrales. I think that Charlie Hoffman gets in the mix this week. So if you're looking for someone, this is a guy who's got dozens of top 5 finishes on tour, including a handful of wins. So Charlie Hoffman this week, if you want someone to get in the mix, worse than that'll be my hot take. Nothing too crazy. I'm going to bask in my Lahiri glory for a little while and not do anything too stupid to follow it up. No, I think that's good.
What do you say about that? We did it, man. Sanderson Farms. Yeah. Any final thoughts before we bounce out of here? I do want to say quick programming note. Yeah. Don't go anywhere. Right after us, MMA, Pete the Heat, Jason Floyd. After them, Greg Ehrenberg. Ship My Money, breaking down. They better be on their game because I have to watch that so I can win $1 million playing NBA.
I win $1 million today, not on Sunday. Tonight.
We got shows coming up next. But any final thoughts before we bounce on out of here?
If Sanjay M gains on average of half a stroke to 3/4 of a stroke putting for the week, I think he wins. I think he gets it done here this week.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think this is a week. My last thing I'll say, don't be afraid to really be aggressive if you like the build and if you're comfortable. I didn't see a ton of difference between the mid-6s and the mid-7s. So I do have some lineups that have 2 guys north of 10K. And then I do have some lineups that are traditional balanced. But it's a wide open week. That's what makes it great. That these swing season events, I like when there's no favorite. You can really be creative with your builds. And when someone like Hudson Swafford wins, 1%, if you nail him, you're in a small group. If you have 6 of 6, you're in the mix automatically, and I love that. So let's go do it. Let's take one down for the show. Chat, as always, we appreciate it. We'll be back to the normal time next week, doing it all over. Hit the like button on your way out, and again, stay tuned for an MMA show coming up next. Good luck, everyone, and we will see you next Wednesday.